So as my mental fugue dissipated and my eyes began to clear, I became aware that I was in a completely unfamiliar place. I noticed that I was in a darkened room, and it was silent save for a dull, regular thumping, which I soon realised was the beating of my own heart. I felt hot. My muscles ached as if I'd been working out. Sweat trickled down my back, and it was then that I noticed that my chest was bare, but something wasn't right. It was stained with something that I couldn't quite make out, and when I lifted my hands to wipe away at the stains, I noticed there was something caught under my fingernails. It was her. In that same instant, I tasted and smelled the unmistakable metallic signature of blood, and the full import of what must have happened hit me like a wrecking ball. I threw my guts up onto the floor, retching long after my stomach was empty, and through watery, stinging eyes I could just make out small pieces of well-chewed flesh in the sticky mess on the floor. Some still had hair. In a blind panic now, I stumbled about the room on trembling legs, frantically searching for a way out. And it was then that I noticed to my left the razor thin outline of a doorway, and I raced towards it, my boots slipping on some unspeakable mess on the floor. When I reached the door, I fumbled around for the handle, and when I found it, I almost wrenched the door from its hinges, and I fell out into a long, well-lit corridor. As I scrabbled to my feet, I noticed that the wooden oak floor, was scraped and scored as if something heavy had been dragged along it. And I noticed halfway up the corridor a single shoe lying on its side, and around it were some spots of what I took to be blood. Now that I was free of the room, I suddenly became fearful that I might be heard. So as quickly and as silently as I could, I made my way up the corridor, pressed myself close to the wall because I didn't want to go anywhere near that shoe, and I made my way towards a large front door, a large oak door. Just to the left, on the inside of it, was an ornate coat rack, and there was a mirror in the coat rack. As I reached it, I went to grab a coat, and I saw a large woolen scarf sitting on a wee shelf, and I lifted the scarf and began wiping the gore and the blood from my face and from my chest. And it was then that I became aware that there was another presence there with me. I was petrified, unable to move. Transfixed, I stared into the mirror and watched as slowly my facial expression began to change. But it wasn't by my doing. It seemed as though I was just a spectator to these events. My brow furrowed, my eyes narrowed. It was me, but it wasn't me. It wasn't me doing this. So helpless, I watched as my mouth twisted into a cruel sneer, and it was then that I heard his voice. He said, "Welcome to your new life." That's when I first met Tex.